Hello, everyone, and welcome to State of the Realm. I couldn't come up with that cleverer name, so 'twas the week before Savage is what it'll have to be. That's what's on everyone's mind. While some of you are excited for some treasure maps on Tuesday, a lot of us are going to be stepping into the Arcadian and getting our first real taste of Dawntrail's promised new encounter design. We've seen glimpses, but this is going to be the real test. So we're going to talk a little bit about preparing for that, what our mentality changes are, talk about it in past experiences where prep has been absolutely essential, or we maybe wish we did better, and a little bit of speculation and prediction as we did last week. So I'm one of your hosts, Mrhappy. Joining us is our crafter extraordinaire for this show, or speaking of prep, and that of Sly. What's going on, boss?
Hi, how you doing?
How's it feel to be the crafter expert on this show for once?
A little weird, a little bit weird, but I mean, I'm used to it anyway. Oh, forgot, before we get started, hi, I'm Sly. You can find me at twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox. I've been streaming for about 10 damn years, and y'all act like, oh, there's this new guy. Hi, I saw you from Mr. Happy's. Yeah. So
I put your at in the title of the thing too, so there's a click to it.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to still get it either way, but still, hi, I'm Sly. You can find me at twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox, Twitter at Sly, aka Gray Fox, you know, all the things. And for everyone who will be raiding, sorry, Keo. Howdy, friends. You tired of not being Savage ready? Tired of going in with normal raid gear and hearing all your friends laugh at you and tell you how you look terrible? Well, come on down to Sly's 24-hour drive-through pawn and gun auto parts, athological adult give bait and tackle discount cigarette out, where we have unheard of prices for all your raiding needs. We got crafter gear, new food, new drugs, and for this tier, we got one of them fancy new plugins that let y'all see all the bomb scenes arena from the guy in the basement who swears up and down that it won't get caught by Yoshi P.
I like the UAV at the end there. That's a good reference. That's a good one. Are you just giving? So you're selling ultra wides essentially? Is what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's the one that won't get you banned. Is the ultra wide? Oh well, thank you for that, Sly. I'm glad that the entire intro song is already gone, and we still have the guest to introduce, and that of who you've already said, Keo, who is our fellow Savage and also world first experience extraordinaire as well.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Keo.
Glad to be here. I have socials that I don't use, so you can find me here, apparently.
Yeah. I'm always like, what do I put at the bottom for Keo? I'll just put whatever. I'll just put the thing he doesn't use. It's just whatever. It's useless, but I don't want it to just be, you know what I should do? I should just have it be like you ever like do like Windows, like period, and all the emotes pop up, like all the Windows emotes, and one of them's the shrug.
Yeah.
That's what I should do next time.
As far as socials go, I will be doing my first stream in many years on Tuesday for Savage, so that at least will be one place you can find me.
There you go. And on Twitch, it's just Kionu without the underscores as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in the title. Again, I put that. That's also tagged in the title, so we're good on that front. All right. Well, we've got a fun discussion, probably a 60 to 90-minute show for this one, similar to last week's, I think. But before we do, thanks to the sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. You don't have to support. You choose to. Everyone can find our show for free on podcast apps and YouTube, of course. But thank you to them all the same for supporting. We appreciate it. Yeah, that one. That's the exact one right there. The shrug. Thank you. Thank you for the example. Yeah, so it's an exciting time coming up. We're just a weekend away, technically. Not a whole week, a weekend away from our first ever Savage tier. Now, Keo, before we get into too much about Savage, we had Whoops on last week talking about how he felt about the normal modes. You have a healer's perspective, which is a little bit of a hot topic in the past month and a half, I think is fair to say. So where are you at on Dawntrail healing thus far in the little bit we've had, and on the general content design, just to get everyone up to speed?
So I didn't get a chance to catch that show with Whoops, so I'm not sure how much my opinions align with his. But
you don't have to. It's fine. You could say he's wrong and he's an idiot, and then we have to raid with him on Tuesday if you really want to.
It sure was interesting having a similarly aligned opinion to the healer strike pre-Dawntrail launch. Like, content really needs a little bit of a healing overhaul, only to discover, a pretty big healing overhaul in most of the encounter design in Dawntrail. And Normal modes is a bit of a step back from that, if I'm just going to give a generic statement, but it still applies. It's very exciting. Or we're in a new world. We don't really know what to expect, and it's hype just for the unknown at this point, but we'll see.
Can you think of an experience that would, as a healer, you would point to as something that genuinely caught you off guard? What you would consider an updated healing design?
Well, for sure. One major thing is sustained damage. Everybody's probably seen it in their normal road raids when somebody gets caught by an AoE that they didn't expect to get hit by, and they suddenly get sustained damage. And you're used to those debuffs being kind of whatever, oh, I'll take maybe 10% more in the next raid wide. Nah, man. Sustained damage takes you for like 18k a tick raw in these fights. That's no joke. That's a huge amount of damage that is added onto the healing requirement for that person to live. And if you don't address it pretty much immediately, it's crazy. So that's very different. That's not what we're used to. Have to respect it. Like I got caught by a sustained damage in the middle of I was in Brute Bomber somewhere, and almost just died just dodging mechanics. I was like, why is my health just going straight down? So that's new. That's not normal.
I'll give you a hint as to what gave you sustained damage.
Yeah. Exactly.
I thought for sure you were going to even just point to Valgarmanda's Fire Phase, which I think is caught a lot of healers really off guard right at the start of Valgarmanda.
Well, I was thinking mostly about normal modes, but the Valgarmander was definitely. So my favorite experience to talk about with Valgarmander is we were doing a normal mode, and the server was having some disconnects, and we lost 2 people in the party, and decided to. It's a story mode, right? Let's just go with 6-man. And the healer was just absolutely overwhelmed with the damage. It was unsustainable, couldn't keep up, and it was somebody that I was like very familiar with. They knew how to play the game, and I was just like, this is also very unusual. Just how much damage this fight's outputting, especially the fire phase. So,
yeah, I remember when we were doing extremes, like most of us hadn't done it before, but Theo and I had, and we got to the fire phase, and suddenly people were dead. It was just like, oh, there's actual damage here for once. Okay, this is an extreme. I didn't think there'd be real damage. Yeah.
They are not afraid to throw back-to-back-to-back heavy-hitting raid wides anymore. They're not afraid to throw 6 raid wides in a row, high Valgarmander, with dots attached to them. It's got teeth, and it's a very welcome change.
Yeah, it's what a perma-dot plus a dot from the ice or lightning plus a raid wide right afterwards while the dot is ticking.
Yeah, and it's like Sky Ruin, Thule Disaster, more raid wides into another. It's just like back to back to back with dots. It's great. Right. That's not even counting like the healer stacks, which are their own beast of crazy damage. It's great.
Now, Keo, I wanted to get your perspective because we talked about this last week as well as Whoops, the whole subjectiveness of difficulty and how a certain demographic of Final Fantasy 14 feels as though shit's gotten a little tougher. So how do you feel about difficulty as it stands right now?
So it's a great question. Thank you for asking me. I have always been a fan of content getting harder. I wanted to get harder. I think that especially the MSQ and the story dungeons hold your hand a little bit too much. And then the jump from like MSQ to trials to EX trials to Savage was too extreme. It just kind of difficulty jumps off a cliff. Or reverse of that, climbs a mountain really fast. Anyway, so it was nice to see it sort of scale up. And it's nice that solo duties, you can still like pick very easy and solo duties and get through them for the most part. So I don't think it gates you too hard. There's still a problem with trust dungeons and single deaths causing you to reset, which I think is still an error in design. But otherwise, I'm very happy with the difficulty ramp, and I think it's overblown. The critiques have been overblown. I don't think there's that many people complaining about it. It's just that one notorious post that's been thrown around everywhere.
Sly, you look like you had something to add to that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it. Like you said, it's one critique and then people just latch on to it, and you get like this mountain of, you know, it's too hard versus, hey, this is pretty fucking good.
I don't think we saw that with because the forum post has like 2 maybe other people kind of agreeing, and then it's like a wall of please stop posting things like that. There was like a large like agree. I remember my video I think I have on has like over 2,000 comments now, and I could not find one that was like agreeing. I just scrolled through, like it was all like, this is ridiculous. Blah. Now that's an echo chamber, to be fair, because I post content on stuff, but even still, like I'm having a hard time finding too much agreement on the it's too hard discussion. It's more like it's more like a starting point for a discussion than an ongoing debate almost.
Right. It's also like a personal experience kind of thing. Like I spammed a whole bunch of dungeons first like week, leveling up several jobs through solo, and I didn't experience any of what was described in any of the leveling dungeons. Pretty much we may have had a wipe or 2 here or there, but it's like usual. You just pick yourself back up and go again. We didn't have any duties abandoned. We didn't have anybody chain dying. Some people had a little bit of trouble, but you just peel them off the ground, keep going. And this is me being on DPS, tank, and healer. Like I wasn't just healer queuing all the way through. So, yeah. That'll always influence how you feel about the situation. Is, you know, what are you experiencing too?
Yeah.
And I'll throw in there that if you're struggling on any one of those roles, learn what the other roles have to do by doing it on tank, healer, and DPS. It makes, trust me when I say your getting better at this game gets so much easier when you play every role at least at some point.
Yep.
Everyone's like, how's the healer letting me die there? Goes healer. Never mind. All right, so now let's hone in on the Arcadian in particular. The normal modes, like I said, we discussed them last week, largely just that they're interesting. There's a few things here or there. Is there any fight, before we start talking about preparing for Savage, is there any of the fights that you're dreading in Savage? Do you dread fights anymore, Keo, or has Gordius just permanently stopped that train of thought?
I think it's just I go from either excited for a fight or not really that excited about fights, right? That's the worst of it is I just fight. I don't know. Part of it's like the 3rd and 4th fight you don't ever really know very much about. They're kind of mysterious by design. But the 1st and 2nd are usually pretty illustrative, and I'm excited for both of those. So
good. You're excited
based
for
on
the
what we
B?
see. I am. I like bullet hell mechanics, so it looks like fun.
Sly, why are you shaking your head?
Because I don't. Fuck that shit.
We got lots of experience with them already.
I couldn't stand near Byakko. Was just like, why? So yeah, fuck that shit. Hell no.
We got
also
so
don't like
much.
jump puzzles though, you know?
2 different leveling dungeons give us bullet hell mechanics, and we got it in a couple of solo duties too. They're getting us ready.
That's why Sly's crafting.
No, I'll be going in. I'll be going in. I'll be at like probably on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, but yeah.
Have fun. Well, the good news is you have 1 fight to deal with before getting to the bullet hell fight.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe it won't be that bullet hell. Maybe it'll be like light rampant, where they're just tethered to you and it's love rampant instead. Sly, don't roll your eyes.
So they're getting us ready for Ultimate. Fuck all that shit that you said. They're just getting us ready for Ultimate. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I think we're gonna have to like manage our stacks of hearts debuffs on us while taking towers and.
No, you had it right the first fucking time. Fuck you. Heart.
Love rampant. Yeah. So we have these 4 fights, but everyone's kind of doing their own thing to prepare. But we try to do a show on Savage Prep because I think it kind of changes with every major update. We kind of have to adjust what we think prep is, but there's still some standard stuff that you can really do that helps a lot of people out. So I've expressed what I tend to do for Savage Prep. Keo, what's your in-game prep normally like for Savage? What's it been like in the past? Has it changed over the years?
So the most dramatic thing that changes, patch to patch, and especially recently, is when they release the normal mode. So that's first off, like there have been plenty of tiers where we get the normal mode and savage at the same time. You get no time to be in there. You go in, you clear it once as fast as you can, you go straight into savage. You can't prep that. Um, it's really difficult to like. You just sort of have to prep the mechanics, and then just good luck. But when the normal mode's out, of course I'm gonna spam that. So I'm spamming normal modes like a lot, at least until I get really sick of them. Because just familiarize yourself with the base levels of the mechanics, how they snapshot, when you can walk into one and it's already gone off versus when you walk into one and oh, that actually snapshots really late and it hits me anyway. A lot of like Honeybee is about that, right? It's about learning, are these orbs actually ahead of themselves like they usually are in other fights, or is it more forgiving, and where can I walk and not get hit? It's really good to just experience that as much as you can, so you're not surprised when a snapshot catches you. So a lot of that, and that's really important if you have access to normal modes. But also just experiencing all the battle content you have access to that's recent, because remember the battle team's not that big for Square, so you're gonna get a lot of the same philosophies and design ideas that they've been making recently is probably going to find its way into the Savage as well. So it's really important to familiarize yourself with everything they've done lately.
What do you think Dawntrail is going to have? So Endwalker was the limit cut expansion. I think most people would agree. It seemed like there was just a limit cut in almost every place it could possibly be. What would Shadowbringers like big one have been? Because every expansion's had that. They discovered something new, and now they're doing it way too much. I know Stormblood, I like to think it's Delta Attack. Just specifically, they gave so many bosses fucking Delta Attack that I'm fucking sick of that attack. Yes, every final boss has Delta Attack in Stormblood. They all have it. And I'm pretty sure some of them have it that aren't even
No,
final
it's just
bosses.
I'm trying to think of what it would be for Shadowbringers.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, Shadowbringers had a whole lot of repositioned AoEs. So AoEs that would be, you'd familiarize yourself with like how the baseline AoE worked, and then they would either rotate it in the middle of it going out, or they would have it come at you from like a wall, or from a clone, or from a shadow, and it would be like you'd have to figure out, you'd have to turn it in your head. And there was a lot of that in Shadowbringers, a lot of turned AoEs, different angles. It would catch, you'd be like, I know this AoE, but it caught me anyway because it was delivered in this way. And yeah. So that was a lot of what was going on in that expansion in particular. But yeah, you're right. Delta Attack even found its way into that first fight in Shadowbringers. We got a Delta Attack there too.
There's even a Delta from Eden. Yeah, Eden Prime has a Delta Attack. Yeah.
They're like, remember Stormblood? Here's your reminder.
You know what's funny? We just did O12 low item level. I didn't realize the stack and spread because I never target or look at the cast bar during that, but I did finally, and I was like, this is a fucking Delta Attack. How did I not realize that this stupid fucking spinny fist phase is a Delta Attack? Ugh. God damn it, O12. They just love that so much. Oh, Stormblood also had the second half of the fight is the same as the first half. Curse for the final boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kefka kind of escapes it. He only does it for like a third of his health bar instead of a half. But like all the other ones, it's like after Hello World 2, the fight is over. After Grand Cross Omega, the fight is on repeat, you know? They did that a lot in Stormblood.
So does it feel like, so tell me, my instinct is that Endwalker had a whole lot of, in particular, filling the entire arena with telegraphs, but it was the sequence you had to remember. And then like the first one would disappear, and the second and third. And they like recapped that with some of the MSQ fights in Dawntrail. Just sort of like the boss putting off like one half room cleave than the other, and you have to step into him. Black Cat does it a little bit too with the 1-2 claw.
Yeah, and then she slides over too. I think that's another thing is going to be, instead of the ads being repositioned, I think we're going to see bosses repositioning a lot for the same types of things. I mean, you see it kind of with Wicked Thunder, with the clone kind of forcing you to do it a different way. You see it with Black Cat showing you the half room and then sliding over to a new spot. So I think that Dawntrail might be kind of just raid wides and moved AoEs again. I think it might be a little like Shadowbringers-esque design wise with just more damage, which I think is probably a good middle ground. I think Shadowbringers had a pretty well balanced. Actually, Shadowbringers did a pretty good job, especially in Prog week, of damage versus the moved telegraphs. I mean, week 1 Fatebreaker. Oh.
Weekwind Fatebreaker did not do very much damage until Cycles.
Cycles, yeah, that's what I'm thinking is stuff. But I imagine Cycles, but for the whole fight. That's what I'm thinking for Dawntrail, like just that level of back-to-back-to-backness, like happening multiple times.
So you asked me before from a healer perspective on that in particular. The only two difficult fights we have so far are so dramatically different in that regard that it's a bit perplexing on what to expect. Because Valgarmander is sort of this constant onslaught of damage. And Zoral Ja is pretty much 3 separate intense instances and then a whole lot of nothing. So you've got the stack marker conga line, and then you've got the duty's edge. Those happen 2 minutes apart from each other, so like all the cooldowns line up for them every time, all the 2 minutes mitigations. And then there's kind of nothing other than that, unless you're taking vulns from messing up mechanics. It's largely just full health, and you'll probably live the rest of the stuff. So that's so much different than Valgarmander. So I don't know what to expect. Are we going to have the similar disparity between the fights in this raid tier? Where some of the fights there's just huge damage incoming, and other ones there's just nothing? Or it's evadable? I don't know.
I guess the better question is, are you okay with that? Because as a healer, that very much changes what your perspective on a fight actually is. It's like how Neo X Death doesn't auto attack and can't be moved as tanks. So while some people like DPS might find it fun to like move all around, tanks are just like, yeah, double punch, great, that's really cool. Oh, I'm gonna turn the boss during Arrow 3. That's so clever. I look so cool doing that. All right.
So the gap is definitely always bridged by what happens if you mess up the mechanics and how do we recover. As long as that's kept interesting, the healers will be happy with it. So I don't mind.
All right, fingers crossed. Where was I going to go next with that? So the first bit of prep is beating up the normal modes, which is now a privilege we have all the time. We're assuming 0.2 and 0.4 will bring back the 1 week delay like they did for 6.2 and 6.4. So we can assume that that's now a permanent thing that we can put on the prog list. It's just normal modes to oblivion.
Yeah.
But that's far from the only thing. That's gameplay prep. But we also have resource prep. And I feel like a lot of people don't really know what to expect resource prep. Sly's looking at his eyes like, yep, my time's coming. The Emporium. Are you really looking at the Emporium ad again? Like a mid-show Emporium?
Nah.
And there's always a bit of a question, especially with this tier. This tier is one of the few where you can prepare things in advance, but you still have to prepare more the same day of. Whereas the other two tiers, if they follow Endwalker, you can be completely ready going into the actual Tuesday of with everything without needing to do any like morning of shenanigans, crafting and whatnot. Aloha, this has nothing to do with you.
Fishing.
No, not fishing. I'm not orange script farming right now. All right, I don't need to do it.
I just saw your mic activate off of the meow. I'm so impressed.
Yeah.
Aloha's loud. He's a menace when he really wants to be. And he's going to be a menace for the next 15 minutes at least. I can already feel it. So is there anything in particular that you like to make sure that you have done prior to the raid coming out? Do you have like any mantras in terms of resource prep that you like to make sure that you have done? Because everyone kind of knows what the general checklist is, but sometimes people like to go above and beyond.
So this is directed at me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, thankfully, I guess, they haven't really messed with the success chances on materia melding. So it's been largely pretty standardized. Like, if that had changed, then it would be like a whole thing to figure out, okay, how much materia do I need to stockpile? But it's pretty much been the same number for so many tiers now that it's just 100 of the tier 12s or whatever the highest tier is, about 500 of the tier 1 down from the max. That's like on average. You may want to have a little extra just to make sure that you can do it. I think the technical average, like the expected value is like 82 tier 12s and about 400 something tier 11s. I'm not sure exactly. I'm getting about 500 and 100. And then a certain amount of potions, probably like 300 to 400. And then a couple stacks of food. Then we're chilling.
Do you stock up? Because that's the big thing. And Sly, this is important for you. How much of the pre-raid release food? Because here's the thing. We're getting new pots on Tuesday. We're getting new foods on Tuesday. So, and you know you're probably going to have pretty decent access time-wise to those. So do you prepare just enough to know that you'll have access, like you'll be able to get access to the new materials and the new pots and stuff? Or do you go in thinking, treating it as if this is what I'll have for the entire prog, like no matter what?
Historically, we don't know how awful it is going to be to make the food in pots. Sometimes they make it really miserable. They tie it to tome mats with very limited supply. They tie it to other really difficult timed nodes or something. You never know. Although now we kind of know what to expect. But the conventional wisdom was bring enough that you're not going to need. That if you had to rely on your food, you got enough. But so maybe like for me, it'd be like 100 food would be more than enough. I'll probably use that over the course of post-prog anyway. And then potions, maybe a little less, I guess. I would still bring at least 200. Again, just in case there's a low supply. But yeah. It also depends on how much you're going to stop and go. Like if you're not doing 16-hour on-release prog, if you're just doing like casual week 1, then you probably don't need to prep any of this. You can just get your food and pots from the market board day of. But I'm thinking like the 16-hour day 1 prog.
I'm thinking of the number of people who don't do 16-hour day 1 prog who are just poor as fuck and don't even want to have to spend gil on the new stuff.
I mean, you just craft your own if that's the case, right? Or you find a friend that will do it for a reasonable price.
Again, we're talking about people who are poor as fuck, so they don't craft anything.
They don't craft, and they somehow don't have any friends that do it either. And they're all poor together, and they just talk about how poor they are and how they can't make gil, and then they just don't go do anything to change it, but they just still don't have any gil. So it's just, they're like, oh, but I can sell the tombstone mats, and then they do that, and then they buy the pots with it. Yeah. Or they use, no, that's the other thing. I've seen this before. You go into PF and see the previous expansion's food from like for the first tier in PF. See people still going through that.
I mean, it's not the worst, and you can still hop in prog. You're probably going to get critiqued on it at some point if you're pushing for a clear and not able to make the DPS check.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Now, Sly, you are on the crafting side of that equation. So what does your prep as a crafter, for someone who's not necessarily crafting for a team, you could technically, if you really needed to, but it'd be the same process.
I have done before.
You have done before, yeah. What is your prep end up looking like when you do that?
Well, for crafter prep, it's a lot. Surprisingly, it's a lot of gathering. Unsurprisingly, honestly, because we have the legendary nodes. One, we have Aether Sands, which everything requires Aether Sands, so it's a lot of gathering and reducing for Aether Sands. Even before that, if you are, again, there are two schools of thought. For gathering, one, you don't really need it, but it would help to be pentamelded. And that was the first thing I took care of. And that was a lot of, gathering for materia. And then I melded, which was kind of painful, but in the end, with like the amount I had gotten, it was probably about 3 mil that I spent on melds. Not bad. In the grand scheme of things, not bad. Could have been worse. After that, once you're fully melded on your gatherers, you're really gathering for quantity. And you're hitting up the legendary nodes because those are probably the things that are going to give you the shit to craft with anyway. So you're hitting up those, you're hitting up the timed ephemeral nodes for the Aether Sands, and that's pretty much your prep. Now, in terms of actual crafting, one, make sure you have your level 100 crafter gear. Two, you could make a good humble attempt at guesstimating the stat points or where we're probably going to need to be. I wouldn't advise it. I'd tell people to at least wait until the patch hits to see the recipes, and then that's another thing I'll get to in a second. See the recipes and then craft around the stat points. Some people are guesstimating to kind of like, make sure once the patch hits, they can just go in and craft without having to wait on, knowing the stat points for the melds. Good luck, have fun. Another thing, of course, making sure you have all the scripts for the recipes, and or having scripts after that for any materials that you might need. Scripts and tomes. Save up all your tomes. Make sure you are capped on tomes, because you definitely know there will be some tome materials for, like you said, food, pots, things of that nature. So make sure you're capped on tome materials, and make sure, again, if you're going in to make a buck, make sure you have money. Make sure you have at least a little bit to lean on. How much? Let's ballpark it, because I'm basing this off of the last raid tier from Endwalker. I had about, after I sold the minion, that was about 35 mil in the bank to kind of play around with, and that was me, not going around in the beginning and gathering the materials. That was me market board gathering. So because I wanted to be the first one on the board, and I was, but nobody didn't have anything ready or anything. They were probably gathering, but yeah, with market board gathering, I was the first on the board. So that's an option. If you want a market board gather, you can. Just make sure you have the money to do so. And then as far as other prep, I think that's pretty much it. Just make sure you have tomes, you have scripts, you have possible mats from the legendary nodes, you have Aether Sands out the asshole, because I don't know how much you're going to be crafting, but make sure you have Aether Sands. So yeah, I'm pretty much be a prep.
Specifically for those people that did crafting the last couple of tiers in Endwalker, this will probably be a different beast, because day one crafted release with Savage, the demand for sets is going to be astronomical compared to the last couple tiers. So you may see some crazy business happening with prices. You may see full sets of crafted gear reaching upwards of 10 to 13 mil day one. It just be like that, and it'll immediately go back down, and it'll go wild.
It's gonna be more than that.
Honey,
more? Yeah, I don't usually use the market board, so I don't know.
I'm charging 16. Well, for a set with weapon, 16.5 mil, flat rate. You get your shit, get on the way. Hell, I'll even throw in some raid food and pots for you. It's a package deal. That's my thing. Again, you can sign up at I'll throw in the link at the end, but that's how much I'm selling for.
I think on the previous tiers, they never reached that much on the market board, right? What's the highest a full set reached in the Endwalker tiers? I wasn't actually watching.
It would have been as Fidelis.
Well, no, I meant the other tiers where it wasn't rushed. It wasn't day one Savage.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember.
9 to 10. I remember prices on Gilgamesh hovering around the same for the first 3 or 4 days, because nobody was in nearly as much of a rush to craft. The supply was lower, but everyone was still trying to, let me grab the set while it's there. So I remember the prices stabilizing around close to a mil, falling a little below for some pieces, even there. It was like a stable market the whole week, a really stable, good market.
And see, my thing is, I'm not fighting with the numb sons of bitches on the fucking market board, because let them fight with each other. I'm grassroots, baby. I have a stream. I have social media to pimp myself out on, and that's that. I'm a hustler, baby. I can't fight with y'all dumb sons of bitches. Y'all be, and when you really do be dumb, I will buy you out. I will literally buy yourself. I will buy your piece and sell it back for a fucking profit, because y'all are so stupid half the time. I'm just fucking dumb.
Market board is crazy. Day one Savage release crafted stuff. It's the Wild West more than other tiers. So
yeah. This is definitely the toughest set to just buy a set, even to get it crafted, even to pay someone to craft it for you. It's by far the almost double the price what you should expect from other tiers, just because of the same day release. And that's actually kind of something, since we're talking about prep, a lot of people were really confused and probably still are, about what the release schedule is for this expansion. Now, bear in mind, I'm not talking about people who've been playing this game for a decade and know what the release of the very first raid tier looks like. But a lot of people, for some reason, and I don't say for some reason, I know why, really thought we were going to get crafted 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm like, for what? Like, we have no time. We literally have no time.
Sly?
Oh.
Looks like,
He's
well,
gone.
he's got no time. He's gone. That's it.
No
He's
time.
Might have Thor. I think I know where he was going to go, but the main reason is that we had the 0.2 and 0.4 patches where they're like, oh, they moved crafted gear to be a normal release. Why didn't they do that this time? That's not what they did, though. They just moved Savage back a week and left everything else exactly the same.
Yeah. And on expansion release tiers have always been like this, with the same day Savage and crafted gear. So that actually hasn't changed, but it throws a wrench in things. People don't know the history? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
A lot of people don't. That if they're more recently joining the game, they don't know the history. Like, World Prog groups used to commission whole teams of crafters just to make their sets, to get the sets done as fast as possible. There was a whole architecture behind it where teams would specifically like seek out dedicated crafters just to the team, and there was a market for it, and you'd be paid ahead of time, and it was just a whole enterprise. And then that stopped at middle of Endwalker because crafted sets were coming out early all of a sudden, and now it's like it's back being relevant again, and it's super weird that it. Like, the architecture, at least as far as I know, isn't there for a lot of teams anymore. So they're scrambling. They scrambled to like get everything together. It's been very interesting watching it sort of unfold.
Yeah, there's and chat brought up something else very funny that's different about this tier from the 0.2, 0.4. Something I had to somewhat face today that wouldn't have affected me. It wouldn't have affected my prep. But a lot of people keep thinking you're going to be able to buy a tombstone weapon on Tuesday for week 1, like you could for 0.2 and 0.4. You could assign a melee in those patches to grab a tombstone weapon because you had 2 weeks of tomes going into that first week.
Yep.
And no, you won't. Everyone can buy an accessory. And if you have a paladin, they can get just the sword. Is the only consideration, because the sword's 300, I think, and the shield's 200, or it's something like that. But
yeah, we can still get week 2 weapons, so like that's still very much a thing, and we'll get 2 of them because assuming you cleared the first 3 floors, you'll get a second weapon, like 2 weapons at once week 2, which is a huge power boost for trying to clear the 4th fight. But,
more a power boost here than in the other tiers, too, because this tier is balanced around the fact we won't have it, and they do balance 0.2 and 0.4 around the idea that we will have it.
True.
So it's a big power. I mean, this is they always say they nerf this tier 10 to 15% compared to other tiers, like the first one, just because it's the start of the new expansion. I don't know, though, because the combat hasn't really changed that much this time. Like, most jobs just got a bunch of follow-ups and, like, maybe some quality of life.
Eden's Gate would like to have a word with you about nerfed damage requirements.
Okay, see, here's the thing, though. That fight E4 could be 15 seconds shorter or longer than it was supposed to be every time as well.
How's your server computer? Is that on power save or not?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that E4. I mean, I remember E2. Although E2, everyone was fighting through getting damage downs week 1. So E2, everyone was hitting Enrage on E2 and just struggling. Like, please stop getting hit. Please stop getting damage downs. Oh, that was the worst. I guess the question I was leading into with that, though, is do you think that's going to be a vocal enough voice to change something next expansion? Might 8.0 be it's no longer that way on expansion release again, now that everyone's kind of been given some clarity?
You mean the crafted sets coming out day 1, Savage, or?
I guess actually everything. Tomes, crafted, something that more matches the 0.2, 0.4 experience.
So I don't know how much they pay attention to what the NA crowd's been saying versus the JP crowd, but I mean, I think everybody was very happy with the changes in Endwalker, the other two patches, with like the delayed crafted and the tomes. I think that was universally liked by the community. I didn't see anyone saying that this is awful. So I would think so. I would think they would change it moving forward.
There was one thing that sucked about that change, Keo. One thing. Doing dungeons for 2 hours before the tier unlocks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That's the only thing.
I mean, they could just get rid of that part. just that part.
Everyone's like, listen, I'd rather do it on break than wake up. Because the way it works out is you've lost several hours of sleep that might have gone into it because you want that extra week of tomes before you go in. So.
Yeah, and it was actually a legit question, right? Like, do we sink hours of our waking time into this when you're racing versus time you could have spent in the fight without sleep? Yeah, that's a legit question. And some people didn't go for it. They're like, no, we're just going to go straight in.
Whether or not those are the teams that made, because I think the teams that like were in the top 5, I think they all probably woke up early, but I think it was still a thing that everyone considered one way or the other. What was more valuable at the very least?
I didn't like it. Would wish that was not a thing. We'll see.
Yeah. And then obviously what's nice about this one is nobody's really thinking I need to get my, because it's an accessory. Like, is one accessory going to be the difference amongst 8 people?
It's a substantial damage increase when you multiply it by 8.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the one person who gets the accessory upgrade. They probably need to commit to it, if anything, more so than anyone else. But the way with how fast week 1 has gone before, it's like it's kind of a tough consideration that how much the tome cap and buying the whatever accessory it is really going to matter versus the pentamela. Like the vitality almost, I think, matters more than that little bit of extra damage.
It's sort of it varies so much based on the fights, Yeah. That little extra damage could matter. It also could not. It's going to depend on what the tier is. Welcome back, Sly.
Thank you.
Did Thor knock you out?
Nah, it was net for like a good minute.
Well, it was funny because you said we don't have the time to...
And then like I saw you freeze and I'm like, wait, something's wrong.
I checked me because I had internet issues earlier today. I was like, oh, is it me? Then I saw Keo's box light up and I was like, it's just Sly.
Yeah.
Dodged.
Yeah.
To get you caught up, we were talking about whether or not they should keep the difference between expansion launch schedule, which is the normal 2 weeks apart from the Savage, and then all the stuff like tomes and releasing on Savage, or if they should do it like 0.2 and 0.4. As the crafting side of that slide, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to do all your crafting on Savage Day and hit that market, or would you prefer to have the time between normal and Savage, whether it's a week or 2, kind of is irrelevant?
I'd honestly prefer the time to prep. So like, the week to kind of, give me time to prep and everything. And that way, the need, I guess, the demand, is relatively the same.
Wait, so you're saying, because you're saying the week to prep, or do you mean releasing on Savage for the crafted, or the release? Okay,
yeah.
All right. I was double checking because I wasn't sure which way we were leaning for that. Because you seemed okay when 6.2 and when 6.2 rolled around and we got to talk about that on State of the Realm. You were largely okay with how the market had just been stable during that time. So I wasn't sure if you preferred the blitz market of Savage versus the stable market of the week difference.
I mean, there are benefits to both, but I personally like, the same day demand rather than have it everything come out a week before and everybody can get their shit a week before, but it kind of slowly dies down and everything. I kind of like the rush of being same day.
I have a lot of opinions on this.
Got to remember, he's trying to make a buck. You're trying to save a buck.
Well, no, I see it from.
Okay.
Yeah, I see.
I do agree that it's a lot more exciting, but from the crafter side, and there's a lot more opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's like there's other aspects to it too. Like for example, from the accessibility perspective of the world race, how it used to be for like people that don't know, like the difference between having a crafted team and not having a crafted team was very substantial with when you would get the crafted gear, and it would
Yeah, I
make
was going to ask that
make a
too.
pretty big difference. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No. I was going to like go into that and ask, like, as far as, you being raiders, what was the timeline of you going in and doing maybe like the first raid, and then, after the fact getting your gear? Like, how long was that timeline for y'all?
I want to say like 2 to 3 hours into patch, we had pretty much everything done.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
if we had a long first fight, where like say we would almost use up the whole instance timer, or maybe just a little bit more of like zone back in and kill pretty quickly, then we pretty much guaranteed all our gear was done. And if it was a fast tier like Alteroid, for example, where we kill the first fight really fast, then the gear would be partially done. You'd have like some pieces, and then you would expect the rest on your first zone out from the second fight.
Keo,
Just
you're among the
pretty
teams
fast.
that one pulled alt right?
No, we did not. But we did kill it in like, I want to say like 3 or 4 pulls, which wasn't too bad because they were like early wipes for one of them at least.
Yeah, like classical elements or something.
One clamp off the cliff or something like that.
Fucking clamp. Oh man. Yeah, I was gonna say by the time you go into the third fight, it's generally accepted that you're pretty much all set on the crafted part at the very least. You probably like food and pots generally as you exit, collect, go back in, exit, collect, come back in. Like if you don't already have enough in some capacity. So.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that your crafting team handled the melds too. Like they had like a good amount of
Yeah, we would be handed full penta melded gear. It wouldn't be just unmelded gear. And that was the standard for a while. It also was like at a time when the crafting like on the market board was not as developed as it is today. Today there's a lot more supply available than there was back then. And the supply back then is like sometimes you would have to pay a lot on the market board, way bigger markups. I mean, I'm sure Happy remembers there was a time, once upon a time, where crafted gear was 20 mil per piece.
Yep.
In Gordius.
Yep. Now keep in mind for Gordius, it was I think it was Midas. I think Midas was when we started getting crafted gear that was the same item level as the other thing. Gordius was the last tier we didn't, but. I'm sorry, yeah, it was the last year we didn't do that. But either way, yeah, no, it was insanely expensive. And people were still kind of going back and forth about whether it was even worth doing. But it didn't take, by creator, it was a standard. And it was still expensive in creator, but it was expected that you were grabbing that stuff.
Yeah, but it was difficult to get an appropriate supply for like a full raid team, plus the time spent melding. That was a huge factor.
The melds is the big thing, because materia used to be an absolute disaster to get.
You used to be required. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, you used to have like the crafting level for every single crafter that you wanted to meld the gear on. So it wasn't like today. You only have to have one crafter at max level to be able to meld everything. But it used to be that you had to have every crafter maxed of that gear type. So you had to have goldsmith maxed, weaver maxed, leatherworker maxed. Otherwise, you couldn't meld that gear.
You basically had to be Omni.
Raid teams, they're not going to have max crafters. So people couldn't meld their own gear, so they had to request meld, and it's not really functional unless you have a crafting team doing it for you. So
specialist in Midas and Creator was still a thing.
Yes, that as well.
A very, very important thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors that changed crafting back then.
Coming back to my original point, it was just the difference between getting gear and how it would speed up your prog, having a crafting team versus not, was massive. So the accessibility was really a big jump for people that were trying to get into day one rating and trying to be competitive. It's like you had to be able to afford this whole crafting team, which was usually like an upfront cost of a decent amount of gil to buy their time, basically, right? You have to pay them for their time dedicating to crafting only U gear on day one launch of Savage when they could be making so much more on the market board. And it's like, okay, well, most teams couldn't afford that. So they were stuck fending for themselves, melding their own gear, and it would slow down prog so much. So I like the early release of Crafted for accessibility reasons. More teams could be on the same playing field as these world first racers. And but at the same time, if you enjoy both crafting and raiding, You could also get the experience out of that, but it's a much better crafting experience crafting Day 1 Savage on release. That's just more exciting. So many different perspectives.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of those crafting teams, when it comes to melding, did you rely on their specific melds, or did y'all have a say in how you wanted your gear melded?
It's that's going to depend on so many things. Usually people would give priority lists, or they would give a skill spell speed threshold they wanted to meet. Like, please give me melds to get to this spell speed or this skill speed. I've practiced with that. Give me there. Everything else in this stat priority. Do your, use your best judgment. And other times the crafters wanted the exact melds, and you had to, like, wake up day of and plan out your melds for them piece by piece. And it depended on the crafters and the raiders. Some people wanted to micromanage that. Others didn't really care so much. So,
okay.
Yeah. A big thing back then too, because of the cost, there was a lot more like murking as a big thing. Nowadays, the rule with murking is largely somebody offers gil in the party finder and somebody can respond to that. You see it a lot with mounts. But people used to just sell like Gordius clears and like all that for like hundreds of millions of gil to like fund teams, essentially, to just split between 8 people. And so it was like a way more in your face. I remember even back in Coil, like 2.1, I remember just randomly getting invited to a Merc party to like make gil. And I was like, I don't want to do this right now. Here, I'll just help with the clear and then I'm leaving. And then that's how I got my Nightmare Whistle, because the person didn't buy it. And then I rolled a 99 and left. And that was it. Thank you, Nightmare Whistle. Never forget how I got my Nightmare Whistle. What a great time. But like, that was another like really common thing, because people could not afford. And even the teams that wanted to be at the top, they just needed gills. So they were just like, listen, this is what we got to do. All right.
No, I gotta mention it because it's such a cool fact. For those who don't know, the Nightmare Whistle, you could roll on it if you already had the mount, and people did.
That's toxic.
I had a friend that got a second Nightmare Whistle mount.
That's so toxic. I don't know why they did. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I think that was the last. That was the last mount that you could buy, that you could roll on twice. I think they changed it right after that.
That was in 2.1, so it didn't take very long.
Yeah, but it was just. It's like, I can roll on this? What? But yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No,
yeah, Merc parties. Merc parties were definitely very, very common back then. Got invited to a lot of them back in 2.0, 2.1. But
yeah, and what was funny is because of how common Gilmerking was, you could just get an invite from a friend and just say like, Merc? ? It was just a tell. You would just get a tell from like a link shot. You're just like, Merc?
Yep.
And that was it. Or they didn't even tell you. You got an invite from them, you knew. They didn't even tell you. You just knew from who invited you.
Yeah, the OG was Titan hard mode because it was the gate to the first raid tier. You had to clear that to get to the first raid tier, and everybody needed it. Nobody could clear it.
What was really funny was Titan Extreme, because everyone had worked out you needed exactly 5 people to kill Titan Extreme. They were like, yeah, we need 5 reliable people, so get 3 others, and then we'll go. Oh, man. I remember the one I got invited to, though. I didn't know it was a Merc party until we were in the middle of it, and I was like, that guy's been dead on the ground for like the whole fight. I can't help but notice. He didn't fall off. He was just dead. It was like, can't help but notice that guy's just dead on the ground right there the entire time. Interesting. Okay.
The merking definitely fell off when more body checks were introduced into raids, and you couldn't just have somebody dead on the floor. You just couldn't. You wouldn't clear.
Yeah. Also, just as less gil was needed, like the more and more that like the accessibility increased, the less people really needed the gil to like invest. Like nowadays, I mean, you have one person who just like out of pocket goes, yeah, I'll just buy the whole set for the whole team. I don't care. And it's just like, okay. Another thing that's not just crafted. This is still a thing today that's very expensive. If you really want to go that extra mile, there's ornate body pieces.
Oh yeah, gold certs.
I feel like our perspectives on this is different, Keo, because you're a healer and I'm not. Because I look at that thing and I go, do I really need 2 extra grade 12 melds that bad that I need to pay 20 mil to do it. And you as a healer go, those are direct hit melds. The answer is yes.
It's funny you should mention that because I just gave you a gold cert.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
Yes. Shove it in your hands and take this, Haps. Meld it.
I mean, sure, if you give it to I have so little interest in ever paying 20 mil for one of those. But if I'm given one, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'm not going to say no, it's an advantage, but it's a constant question. People look at it and they go, do I really need that? Is that really what I want?
It's good to have. Coming from someone who got a gold cert. Was I sold one or given one?
I don't know. It's you. How would we know?
The truth of the matter is, it's not that difficult to get either gil or even a gold cert. Like you can make it so you have a very good chance of getting a gold cert if you're willing to put in the time to shuffle and shuffle and shuffle to get a 3-line potential every time you do a Wondrous Tales. It's
fuck that bitch Chloe. No. I've gotten so close to so many 3 lines so many times and just to get fucked by one sticker. Fuck that bitch.
But it is big payoff. I mean the 10 to 20 mil is no joke. If you go for it. And it's in such high demand. Every raid team wants them.
That's what
it was one of those things where like we talk about gil not being worth anything. Man, if you can pay gil to get stat boosts for your raid tier, like everybody's going to want to throw every advantage they can at a raid tier if they're racing.
I just look at it like I don't feel like that amount of subs. Like, okay, I'll tell you what. If there was an Ornate full left side, 100%. Like if you could go head, body, hands, legs, feet, weapon. Imagine an Ornate weapon. Like that. First of all, that's a lot of gil. Second of all, or an Ornate ring. Oh God, if there were an Ornate ring, I would pay 20 million for.
That would be nice.
That would be nuts if there was an Ornate ring. They really want to add something to gold certs. That's the next thing to add. But I just like, what is it? It's like the difference of like now 80 substat, I think, across 8 people. I'm like, dude, that's 160 mil for 80 substat for each person approximately.
It's like, unless if you've got the gil to spend on it, why not get every advantage?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the logical person in me is like, it's like paying $10,000 for a plane ticket, right? Like, I don't need to do that. I can go there and eat the exact same things that I'm paying here and pay like 10 times less. But it's like, but if I have the money, do I want to take the 10,000? And I'm like the kind of person who's like, nah, dude, I still wouldn't pay the $10,000 for the plane ticket. It's just like a functional belief in me that like it's just not worth the value that it only has the value because of the rarity, not because of its power.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So everyone's always asking should they buy the Ornate body? And I can't in good conscience say yes.
I mean, yeah. It's only really like I think I wouldn't even consider it if I wasn't trying for world first. If you're just trying to raid, it's not worth it. It's not going to make or break anything in casual raiding. Nothing that you can't fix with a couple more, like with another enrage bowl. It's just that how many times across the years have we seen a 0.1% enrage? How many times?
I don't want us in particular to have this.
You wanted, A3?
Okay, but that was just 2 people died.
But it was still 0.1%.
It wasn't even 0.1. There was no number anymore. That was the worst part about it. It was gone, but we didn't get it.
And it's like, if the Ornates across the whole group could make that into a kill, that's so big. When did we that was like multiple days ahead of time too, right? Like we backpedaled in that group. So
Keo, it was Saturday, and then
Saturday.
We didn't kill it till Monday, like an hour before reset. Yeah. We went from world 3rd on the wipe to world 6th on the kill. I remember it like it was fucking yesterday.
No, it was Was it like ninth? No, or maybe
No,
we were
we
sixth.
were one of only 6 groups that cleared with weapons.
Pre-weapons.
Yeah, that's pre tombstone weapons being available. We were one of only 6. We went from 3rd down to 6th. I remember. I have an eidetic memory of these events.
Most people who've done any kind of competitive rating have memories of 0.1% wipes. And I want you to think about that Ornate again when you think about those 1.1% wipes, because it could have saved it.
In that regard, what about the tombstone? What about the tombstone accessory we were talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
You look at that 0.1 wipe, you're like, we should have bought the fucking rings. Why didn't we buy the fucking tome rings? Why didn't we all get a 720 ring? That's everyone was asking, like, should I spend week 1? And I was like, here's the thing. I don't think it's worth, but when you have that 0.1% wipe, you're going to wish you bought that fucking ring. That's all it's going to be. Oh, my God. No, not 1%. 1% you chalk up to executional errors. 0.1% you chalk up to, I should have bought that fucking ring. Oh, especially back in Gordius where prog was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh. When we were talking about that Monday clear of A3, that was week 2.
Yeah, that was the end of week 2. That was like the amount of time. So I think my DSR and Top Group both took 15 days to clear. That's the same time frame to get the A3 clear.
13 days of prog to get the 3rd fight clear of a tier. That was Gordia's Wild West. And we were the 6th team in the world to clear.
13 days in, we were the 6th team, yeah.
It's different times, man.
And then no one cared about A4. Like, they got world firsted and just everyone stopped caring once they changed it. Once they changed it. Once the strat came out. Once ignore everything. Fuck it. Don't care. Fight sucks. Terribly designed. Ignore it all. Just clear the fight. Get me out of here. And I'll see you guys never. Oh, Gordius. Kyo is in the group of people that I feel like wants Gordius again too, which is why it's always
No. I don't. No, don't even suggest that. No, Gordius again. Midas, maybe not Gordius.
What if it was just not Manipulator, but it still took 4 weeks?
Nah. I think my limit on excitement for rating is pretty much bottomed out at about a week now. A little more than a week for Ultimates is fine. I don't really want to go more than that.
I feel that.
How much can you tolerate 16 hours in voice with your boys, huh?
15 days. That's what I have the answer. 15 days. Because after that 15th day, we all cry, and then I leave. I leave Discord, and I'm like, thank God. It's like, you guys are great. I don't want to hear your fucking voices for the next 6 days, all right? Don't talk to me.
Like the being stranded on a desert island with people. You're going to get sick of everyone. I'm sorry. It's not going to take that long either. That's what it is. Your favorite people in the world, you're still going to get sick of them after 2 weeks together.
At least that joined at the hip that much. Oh, God. So that's resource prep. Having the crafted stuff, gemstones, aesthetics, scripts, all that. There is the one last aspect about Savage Prep that only kind of gets discussed. Your health.
See?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I get memed on this every time I talk about this. Every time I talk about this, I'll be like, yeah, whatever. Eat healthy, prep your meals. Nobody does that. No, but yeah, you're right. It is important. Sorry, I want to hear what Sly had to say. Actually,
no. I was just
allowed to exhale.
I was just agreeing. I was just agreeing because, like, again, it rarely gets talked about, and yeah, like you said, people meme on it, Q. But yeah, it is important. Coming from me, who tells everybody to take care of themselves for fucking early access and shit. You know, I should put some shit out for fucking raid for people who are raiding and shit. Because y'all are fucking terrible. I mean, at least Haps makes food and, you know, gets some amount of sleep and shit, even though he's on a 16-hour day. But the rest of y'all, I fucking worry about y'all dudes. Like, half of y'all be on fucking Doritos and Mountain Dew, doing the do. I understand we got the little thing.
That's not the problem. You know what I hate hearing during prog more than anything?
What's up?
I'm having pasta. I never want to hear those fucking words because I'm like, so you're fucking carb loading and you're gonna get tired. God damn it.
Oh man, do you remember? I'm gonna have to leave names out of this because there's no way I'm gonna shame this person. But there was a mutual friend of ours, Habs, that I don't know if you remember that they had a raid team, and they had a particular new member that they brought in for a particular tier in Heavensward. And this was my favorite story about health because they got into the day one and they found out day one that this guy had been not sleeping before day one prog, and then he'd been chugging energy drinks before they even zoned in. And it was probably about 2 to 3 hours into prog day one, and he just goes, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm gonna go sleep." And it's like, okay, we probably should have had this conversation about health and food and prep ahead of time, because you can potentially ruin the whole experience for your whole team if you don't take care of yourself and plan appropriately. Please don't chug energy drinks the night before day one pro. Because you're gonna have a bad time.
Don't y'all like take like? I remember some raid team. I don't know who it was, but don't y'all like have like little breaks, like hour breaks, and maybe like get in a quick nap before, or strategize. I don't know, what do y'all do? But
I hope people aren't napping in the hour breaks between pull. It's not good for your mental either.
Nope.
But sleeping well is very important. So we're going to talk about health. We can talk about sleep. We've discussed this as a group. I think everybody talks at some point about when you're going to reset your schedule, right? Because especially for people on the West Coast, having to wake up at 3 a.m. is not normal. You're not going to do that naturally, unless you're built different like Happy is. He can just like go to bed at like 5 p.m. the day before. I can't do that on a whim. I need to like slowly roll back my circadian rhythm over like the previous week, which I'm already doing. Like I said, I'm really tired right now. I'll probably be sleeping shortly after the broadcast because I'm wrapping I'm sort of getting used to that rhythm of sleeping during the day. Because you gotta. But other people do differently. Everybody has their own strat for sleep, and then meal prep. Nothing heavy, lots of water, no caffeine, all that stuff.
No, some of us need caffeine. Some of us, Keo, you haven't seen me off caffeine.
Let me rephrase. The amount of that you're used to, amount of
Yes.
whatever foods, don't change your diet.
Yeah.
That's the more important thing. Is you should keep yourself regular, but also try to work out things like pasta, like you said, and too much sugary energy drinks or things like that beforehand.
And I will say this, it's a little bit of a different beast for like this coming Tuesday versus November. Because when you prep for a Savage tier nowadays, you've had a discussion about what everyone's expected clear time is, and you can prep for that amount of time. You can't have that discussion accurately with Ultimate. You can try, you can be like, okay, have a week, right? And then we'll see where we are from there. And then you usually have like a day during Ultimate where people just kind of have lost the like their prep's gone. Like there's no way, like you can't prep chicken and like eat it for like 2 weeks. It's going to go bad, or you have to freeze it and you're miserable and you hate yourself, So
you sort of you plan that extra time, right? Like on a short tier, I've seen groups plan for like 4 to 5 hours of sleep that one, with the anticipation that they're going to kill on day 2.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it's an ongoing discussion how much sleep is like optimal for night 1, assuming you're going to have a short day 2. But for Ultimate, you're not doing that. You'd be sabotaging the group if you're trying to like skimp on sleep for a week-long prog tier. You're going to probably get closer to 6 to 8 hours with a little break in the morning to do your whatever routine. It's more likely, but exactly. Sorry, I'm just agreeing with you, but yeah.
I mean, that's fine. You can add whatever you want to the discussion.
Yeah, just it's not unexpected for people to do really unhealthy things like I said, like sleeping like 3 to 5 hours or even less day one, going to 2 for a savage tier. Very uncommon in ultimate. Just no way. I've seen people crash really hard or just try to play really sleepy because they tried to do less sleep or they just couldn't sleep night one, and then they're just playing really bad day 2, day 3, day 4. Just it's important to try to get actual amounts of breaks, like long breaks when you're doing extended tiers.
I was just gonna say day 3 and 4 are always the worst in ultimate.
Yeah.
Because people are like adrenaline junkie as you get to new phases on day 1 and 2, and then you do a lot of like kind of ironing things out day 3 and 4, and their interest and their like adrenaline just tanks. And so even if they're on a good circadian rhythm and they've got good like just it flips. Like that's the breaking moment where you learn whether or not your group is going to actually stay together before the end.
Yeah.
By the 4th day, you're like, listen, I'm going to stay. I'm going to keep doing this. But man, I don't know if we're going to finish the fight. Oh God, that's a brutal one. And there's also even just little things like when people are on break, some people spend every single break going over something to help with the fight and not help with themselves, like getting up and taking a walk around the block or getting fresh air or whatnot. They're just like, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to study this, and that's all I'm going to. And they do that every single time.
Yep. People pop into my mind in particular from my different raid tiers that do that, and you have to sort of harass them, like, no, get up, walk around, leave the computer, please.
1 hour break, 55 minutes in, they go, right, I should probably eat. There's 5 minutes left in break. Because they've just spent the last hour trying to like figure something out so when you come back, it doesn't need to be figured out. But what always ends up happening is you spent the hour figuring it out and then an hour afterwards explaining the thing you figured out anyway. So because nobody was there, everyone was off taking their break.
Ultimately, you know your body better than anyone else. And part of like 16-hour day raiding is taking good care of yourself so that you can do an extended play session. And everyone is ultimately responsible for themselves and holding yourself to account for good habits. So just don't int. That's all.
Keep saying ultimately.
Yeah. Oh, do I? Yeah, ultimately.
I was just like, I would do that on purpose. Just over here chuckling to myself. Yeah. And I can't stress it enough. Like, I already know what my Tuesday meal is. Funnily enough, mine is pasta, but it's chickpea pasta, so it's not a lot of carbs. It's made entirely of chickpeas. So that way it's not heavy and I don't have to worry about it.
I always do a mixture of some things from the store that we'll keep for a few days and a mixture of my own prep food. But I have like a choice, and preferably stuff that'll stay for like 3 to 4 to 5 days in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few things that are like, soups that are relatively light, like noodle soups that if we have an extended session, you can use. But it's good to have a mixture of stuff. All things that are light, not heavy. But yeah, everyone's different.
It is what it is. Just treat yourself well.
The important thing is just to be thinking about it and not pretend it doesn't exist. I've had people that want to eat pizza on day one. You know what? Whatever. If you can game on pizza and you have confidence in it, go for it. You know your body. Whatever.
Just maybe don't eat the whole pie in one sitting. You're like, oh man, sorry, I'm just so tired. I was like, well, your body is spending more energy digesting than it is thinking about the fight, so I can understand that. Yeah. But those are largely the factors that go into prep. Now, obviously, we've got a long Dawntrail ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of times to prep thinking ahead. We have, and I'm gonna see if I can get all of this correct. We have 3 Arcadian Savage tiers. We have minimum 1 that we know about, Ultimate, in the next several months. We have 2 or 3 Criterion day progs. We have 1 24 to 48 man Savage that we know they're already working on, likely to do with Shade's Triangle. We have a potential Deep Dungeon release. You know, they've still said they're not 100% sure. They haven't really, it doesn't seem like they've 100% locked that in versus doing something else and potentially more. How do you prep for all of these different things that many times a year and keep yourself sane? And how many of them do you actually prep and treat like prep? Because some people don't treat Criterion like prep. I learned that in Endwalker for sure.
This is where we bring up the Asphodelos into DSR, into Abyssos, into Top Gauntlet that we had last time. Because that was exhausting. So, potentially have that, but worse, this expansion? No.
There was also Criterion in there, as well as another, and then finally Anabasios and another Criterion. And there was a Deep Dungeon somewhere in there.
Yeah. Pace yourself. You know, it's all about just take breaks. Don't be afraid to, like, you know, not play the game if you're getting exhausted by too much. And it's okay to miss a tier, you know, if you just want to chill.
That was ultimately what I was waiting to see if you're going to say, because like some of us are like every single one of those at least needs us to be responsible. Maybe not prep, but responsible. But there are plenty of people who just look at Criterion on Wake Up and go, I'm not doing that. Nope.
I have lots of friends that they usually it's not world first, but day one proggers that through the gauntlet that was last expansion's Savages and Ultimates, they just were like, nah. For a couple of them, they just, nah, I'm just not going to do that. And they did it casually in the weeks after, and it was fine. It was great fun. You can do it. Then you can do it with like a full group of friends, not just people who can do day one like hard prog. You can just go in with friends. You can chill. You can do 3 raid days a week. You can extend the prog. You can just not do it too. I mean, it's whatever. I know some people that still haven't done some of the ultimates, and they're talking about doing it, but I mean, it's just more content you can do when you feel like it. I don't know. People get overwhelmed. I feel like they burn themselves out really a lot in this game with raiding. Pace yourself. Like, there's no need to. The content will still be there. Just as relevant as ever. I've done top prog in the last like couple months with different groups, like first time clearers, and it was a great time. There's no rush.
I still haven't re-cleared top.
What?
No, I haven't done it. I literally haven't re-cleared since.
Oh right, you
clear.
missed the.
I
missed
didn't
the
miss
18
it.
clears.
I didn't miss it. I said I can't do this. I can't keep committing like 3 evenings a week to this. So I'm gonna step out so somebody else can. If I re-clear, it's gonna be 7 people who are ready to go, re-clear it all the time, and I just bang them out. Like it's not gonna be a reprog.
Fair enough.
That's just how my evenings work. Yeah.
That was what that group was supposed to be, though. Like that was the team whoops.
Well, no, we were helping Balana because he didn't get to do it on content, right? So it was like after 2 weeks of reprog, I think we were on Delta or Sigma or something. And
it was also a whole bunch. It was a whole bunch of people on off rolls, like including me.
Yeah,
so we were reprogging.
I'm pretty sure I just did Fizz ranged again.
I was tanking.
It's
great.
That. Yeah. So yeah, there's it's a lot. Don't feel too bad if you just don't do something. It's rough. It's rough trying to be the person who's like, yeah, I got to do that. You can complain about not having stuff to do all you want. Sometimes you just maybe are kind of glad you don't have something to do, or glad you have something to do later. So
this is the part where I say I'm really happy and I'm eating well. Yay, all the hard content.
And I say, no, I'm happy.
You are happy.
He said it like 3 times, Sly, so I held off. I waited. One of the times you were disconnected, though, so I couldn't do it then. You know? That's it. It's the way. I think I've killed him. He's choking. It's all right, Sly.
You've had such an effect on me now that now when I'm hanging out with Whoops and he says, oops, I go, oh, he said his name. That's because of you.
But
his
name isn't Oops, it's Whoops.
He's infecting people now.
You can't, the way he says it's like you can't tell if he said whoops or oops, you know?
Ups.
He's infecting people now.
Infecting? What am I, VD over here, Sly? Come on now.
Like The Walking Dead. Pretty soon everybody would be making puns like Happy.
It's like the party rock
Oh,
anthem.
I'm happy.
No, it's like the party rock anthem one where they're all dancing, but it's like an apocalypse.
Yeah.
There you go.
Every day I'm shuffling.
There you go. I think that covers most everything that people can look for prepping now, prepping later. I guess I'll wrap this up with one last thing. We talked a lot about Dawntrail and how this first Savage tier is going to set expectations. But do you have any expectations in particular based on what the devs have said or the experience so far? Things that you absolutely are kind of like ready to lock in now. What you want the team to do, what you hope the team does, what you think the team will do with the encounter design going through Dawntrail. Be a
mostly just so it's in particular the difficulty ramping. We have yet to really see. I don't think the EX trials or the normal modes have really said if the difficulty ramping is really going to apply to Savage, right? Because it's not necessary that they would want to ramp up the dungeons, the MSQ, and then everything else too. So is Savage... So I keep telling everybody when we talk about like expectations for Savage, we're like, oh yeah, it's going to be like a 2-day tier. That's just been a given. But what if this is a 4-day tier? We are not used to that. Some groups haven't prepared for that. They don't have the time off. They're not ready for it. So I would be interested if that was not a given that it was 2 days anymore. That maybe we creep into a 3rd day or a 4th day. I don't know. I would like to see the difficulty going up and not artificial gating either. I feel like they've got the capability now to just mechanic gate us for those days and not just sitting grinding in rages because nobody likes that.
Not an Abyssos accidental gate, essentially.
Yeah. I'd say the capability. They mechanic gated us in Midas. That was ancient. A long time ago, but yeah.
It's funny looking back at Midas and going like, man, we really didn't actually do a whole lot for any of this, huh? But like, it was a lot back then.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tier that I don't remember how long prog was. Do you remember? It was like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 13 days again. It was like 11 or 13.
13 days, but for the whole tier, not just the first 3 fights. And then, but it was all mechanic gating. I don't think we were stuck on DPS at any point. It was just, these fights are just complex and hard, and there's a lot of nuance to them. And just, I don't want 2 weeks of prog. Like I said, I think 1 week's like my limit. But at the same time, 1 day prog is pretty disappointing.
I just think back to Midas, where Gordius, all the teams broke on the 3rd fight. Midas, they're like, we're going to just focus on mechanics. It's not going to be as DPS intensive. And then all the groups broke on the 2nd fight instead.
Oh, that's because it was bugged. Like,
no, that was also because groups couldn't even get past Blaster, all right?
It's fair. It's fair.
And then remember, Midas is one of the only... between Midas and Abyssos, that was like... They hadn't nerfed a tier while it was active since a month into Midas. Remember that. It was that they nerfed A6 a month into Midas being out because of what it was doing to teams.
That's right. They nerfed it twice, right? So they nerfed it once the weekend of release. I don't
that
remember.
Was a bug fix, I think, though.
That was the bug fix, yep.
Yeah.
And then the actual nerf a month later.
Yeah, where they got rid of a landmine and like, was it Blaster? No, Blaster's second, Brawler's first. Yeah. But yeah, they got rid of like a landmine and Brawler, and they like changed some things and like some of the other stuff and like Vortexer's damage, or I don't remember everything they did.
Didn't they make the silence not necessary too, or something like that? They made it so that the Blaster's cast that needed to be interrupted didn't actually kill you.
I don't remember if that was then or if they did that on creator release. Because like when Midas released, they nerfed the fuck out of Gordius, like massively.
Yeah.
So I don't remember which of them that was. They did the same with Second Coil, where they made it puggable. With Coil, it made sense though. With Coil, it was like, oh, people want to do the story, so now it's not relevant. Let's just nerf the shit out of it. With Gordius, they're like, we're sorry.
This is optional content. Good luck.
Yeah. I do wonder about body checks in particular, because they were really leaning towards body checks in in the end of Endwalker. So I wonder what the body check count is going to be like here.
Thank you for mentioning that. That is something I was hoping to get less of in this expansion. I miss recovery. I love recovery. I think recovery is fun. It engages the whole team. You have to make like on-the-fly adjustments to recover pulls. And we had a lot of body checks at Endwalker that made recovery almost impossible in a lot of fights, where you just, somebody's dead, we can't complete the next mechanic, start over. And I don't like that. I hope they get rid of that stuff. And I think they will. My suspicion is that they will.
Yeah, I think they keep some body checks though. I think they put body checks in some fights.
It's not about not having them. It's just less.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like in P10, for example, losing someone and then immediately getting towers a second later. But that like happens tons of times throughout the fight. And you're just like, well, we can survive one tower, and then you don't, even though you just said you could. Technically, you're just like, well, we could, but we're kind of fucking dead, So that's going to be interesting. Valagar Manda is the big body check that comes to mind, whereas Zoral Jaw is more like whoever's alive is playing a part kind of situation.
I've necromancered my way to victory in Zoral Jaw many times.
Yeah.
So that is a very much a recovery fight. But it's like, I think back on like P12 Door Boss, for example. There's just a lot of places where if somebody's dead, you get double tethered, or you get 2 debuffs on one person, or you get just some other impossible scenario that's just going to result in cascading deaths, and it's just impossible. Someone's dead in limit cut starting. Well, I guess somebody's getting dashed twice, and it's pretty much over. But it's just throughout the fight. There's one person's dead. Oh, well, 2 or 3 more people are about to die. It just is what it is. None of that's fun. I don't think that's engaging or fun gameplay. So
until it's an ultimate, then it's just expected.
It is. The ultimate is expected. Yeah, body checks are expected there.
When you recover a body check by accident in Ultimate, you feel like such a fucking gamer. You're like, dude, I don't know how we made that work, but here we are. All right? Or only one person dies somehow, and it's just like, oh, thank God. All right. And then you die to the next thing. Never mind. Just
I feel like there was like a lot of recovery opportunities in DSR, for example.
There's
like
a lot.
There's a lot.
I mean, there's a lot of trying to kill somebody with the damage down to get them to not have the damage down anymore. Like, I think Nidstinian was a lot of like really trying to make sure, like at the very least you were like, well, I guess we could practice eyes and just LB3.
It's like even in like something like Sanctity, where 2 people would die during the night dashes, you could, as long as you raise them pretty much instantly, you could still recover and do the next mechanic, the meteors.
Yeah.
As long as you had 8 up, but you had time to get 8 up.
Yeah. Even Death of the Heavens is largely recoverable as long as you can ensure you kill the meteors at the end.
I've seen that recovered a lot of times, and it's very satisfying. It's fantastic. Yeah. Like, I just want an opportunity to save a pull. That's all I'm asking.
You know what you don't recover from? Race Felger flies into a rage.
But there was some cool stuff you could do with that too. Like, for example,
like what?
there was the tech. Do you remember the tech, Happy, where you would forcefully die before the cauterize so that you wouldn't enrage Race Felger?
I do remember
that. You would like die to Pyretic so that we don't enrage them.
I remember, yeah.
Because if you have Pyretic, you're getting dove by Race. That's how the mechanic works, right? He cleanses the Pyretic. But if you were going to die because, say, you took a tick, like maybe you moved and you saw you took a tick, you could quickly move again and die so that the dive wouldn't kill you and enrage Race. And that was that's cool tech that you could know about and react to.
Yeah, there's a handful of things that you could do. Even just protecting the person with Nidhogg's vow, like putting them in a situation where they won't die at the very least, or like they can do the pass, or you can like move the pass over or something. There's like a few little things that you can do there.
Tying it back into the theme of the show, just recovery is something you can prep for. That is something you can practice with your raid team. You can practice, for example, this is something as simple as raise priority. Prepping ethers on healers for extended raises. The discussion about whether to bring a raise caster or not, which, right now, Picto is pretty good. But raise casters are always there. They help with recovery. It changes the priority. These are things that you can talk about with the group. You can talk about like front-loading MIT, changing MIT plans on the fly to handle a recovery situation, tank LBs as a recovery tool. All these things are fun things to talk about with your group. And if there's no recovery options, it just feels like it's all wasted. if it doesn't matter. Someone died. We're gonna die. There's a body check. That's awful. Feels bad.
Yeah, a big thing that you'll see a lot with really experienced people who have reses is knowing where to go stand to res someone. Like, oh, there's going to be a tower here that's normally mine. I'll give them my tower and go to theirs by resing them where, my tower spot would be. Things like that can be, those are big life-saving moments. When you know how to do the tower res into taking somebody else's tower, you stand out pretty significantly in almost any scenario.
We've had things like in phase 1 of Top, where, for example, somebody died at the very end of Pantocrator, and I've had to raise them, but I know that they're not going to be able to get to their spot. So knowing where everyone else's spot is, it's the same principles what you just said, right? Raise them in my spot, and then run to wherever there's an empty spot, because they'll be in my spot, and I can heal them and keep going. But that tech is so important, and I just want it to be possible. That's all I ask for.
The good news is if it's possible in Top, there's at least a decent chance it's possible in other places. Because Top is not known for recovery.
It is not.
Yeah.
Little things like that, I wish there were more. Because, yeah, you're right. Top didn't have many recovery options.
Top is an entire 5-minute phase of, I sure hope if somebody dies, they're not the person who has Hello World Far or Hello World Near. You see that fucking thing explode, you're like, this is light rampant all over. This is the same feeling I got every time light rampant went off when I see a fucking Hello World Near or Far explode.
It's also just the nature of having a constant DPS check through the fight. Is there's no moment where if like 3 people died, you would still be okay because you've met the check. For you met one check, and this is the break, and you can have recovery, and then a new check starts. But instead, it's just a constant check. So if 2 people die, you're just not going to make the check, so you just wipe it.
God, you just reminded me of my biggest fear for Dawntrail, one that's likely to still happen from Endwalker. Crit variance. That's not
crit variance is always a thing until they get rid of crit.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's gotten worse. Endwalker was the worst crit variance has ever been, and Dawntrail is not better in that regard. Not right now, at least. Like,
no.
Some jobs are more consistent. Like Machinist has 3 direct crits. Wildfire you don't have to worry about, so it's got like a huge advantage in like not generating a ton of crit variance. Samurai also generally very good at not having to deal with crit variance, but you've got shit like you still have Ninja, you still have Pictomancer, and Pictomancer is a big one. Like, yeah, the hammer is a direct crit, but hammer's not everything else.
Yeah.
So, why? Yeah, there's nothing like a top log and going like dying at 0.1%, and the Ninja goes, I only crit 1 Hyosho that run. Like, that's the fucking worst. To see one, like, I got 5 Hyoshos and only one of them crit in that last phase. Son of a bitch.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, the last bit, actually. Almost job balance is kind of the last little bit when it comes to Savage. Do you, like, how much do you recommend people being ready to job swap? Or how important would you put the emphasis on it week 1?
So I don't know if there's been any recent developments, but Picto is being brought down a little bit, right, on Savage release? I believe they
have not said a goddamn thing about it. So all they've said about Picto was they fixed the clicking off your ether hue for Thunder to do a skip. They fixed that already. You can't do that anymore. That's all that they've mentioned. They haven't said anything else.
If Picto isn't brought down in potencies, then it's like, I mean, ultimately, I think Picto is a lock-in. It's just, if you glance over at certain resources, you'll see that Picto's doing pretty well. It's eating pretty well right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think anybody would not be taking one. But other than that, I mean, you kind of just job swap to whatever's meta. By default, I don't see you swapping mid-prog, except for tanks, maybe. Because there's still obviously the Paladin diff when it comes to raid mid. But Paladin also not great.
Paladin diff. Listen, Paladin's the only job that can buy a weapon week 1, so maybe,
Wings is no joke. Free. It's a free extra raid mid that the other tanks don't have. Cover sometimes has shenanigans that it can do as well, depending on the mechanic. Like we just recently went back and did Guardian, and cover for praise that was a very legit strat back in the day. It was very good.
Sure was. Boy, do I hate Guardian. not a favorite fight of mine. I don't like all of Sigmascape as a DPS. I'm pretty bored in most of Sigmascape as a DPS, but that's just me.
I think we were very much in a meta of play what you want.
That's ultimately what the question was, is how much do you actually condone the job swaps and whatnot?
Picto is, I think, the only lock-in I could think of. Sorry, go ahead, Sly.
No, you're good. And then in regards to the meta and in prog in general, like, well, we kind of glanced over it, but meta versus, healing, not healing, but rezzing for prog, or having that red mage, having that summoner, or having.
God. So Sly, we're gonna have a res mage. We're gonna be double caster for some of the fights early, because in the early fights, the damage difference between having double melee and having a reser is not likely to be the significant factor on whether or not you clear. But man, do I not care. Like, especially if there ends up being body checks, the res mage thing just falls like just so flat most of the time.
Yep, there's been plenty of fights recently that it's like there's no point in having a res mage because we will fail if anybody dies anyway. So it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case. You're gambling on it, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not recovery is going to be important or not in the tier.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say that if people haven't been paying attention, it's supposed to be the case that the first tier of an expansion has a very light DPS requirement to pass it. Eden's Gate, like I said, would like to have a word, but in general, the first tier is pretty easy to make checks. So in theory, yes, you take the res mage, but damage does also always matter. But yeah, like I said, this is more of a tier where you can play what you want. I think res mage helps a lot. You can probably still make checks, but we also don't know. That's what they say, and then what actually happens is sometimes different.
I'm of the opinion right now, you can equate being double melee res mage fizz ranged as the equivalent of being double fizz ranged, and I can't ever condone that. It's just because red mage at the moment, red mage and summoner are just in such unimpressive spots. Like, I don't mind if they're worse than the other two, but I do mind being double fizz ranged.
They also recently lowered the recast of Swiftcast to 40 seconds for healers, so it's even easier to do reses on healers.
It's also easier to use it on glare.
So true.
If there's anything I've learned in Party Finder, just means more instant glares. Yeah, Lightspeed having 2 charges, and man, I don't even know if you want to get into the whole Astra against White Mage thing. That's just...
Oh, wait. This is the perfect opportunity for a public service announcement.
Okay.
Hey,
Ooh.
I know they lowered Swiftcast to 40 seconds. You still should hardcast raise that person on the floor if your Swiftcast is on cooldown. Don't leave them on the floor until your Swiftcast is up.
And if you're a red mage,
healers.
Melee combo.
So many healers I see just leaving people on the floor because, Swiftcast is up in 10 seconds, I'll just wait. No, it's not. It's a damage loss, trust me. Please raise them.
Please raise them. And it's a healer telling you that. Healers be like, man, I wish I had to do more healer stuff. Res you. I got 10 seconds. I'm casting glare.
And then it's like happy except for red mage. Yeah, we got a melee combo. He can wait. They can wait.
It does always kind of boggle my mind when the healers are looking at the red mage, their damage dealer, and go, well, I don't have Swift, so that's your job. And it's like,
well, I'm in melee combo. What the fuck do you expect me to do?
It's not even just that. It's that, wait, so we're down a person. Damage is now a little bit more of a factor, and you want them to stop damaging while you keep damaging because they have an instant cast and you don't. They're like, well, it only costs them 1 GCD. Be like, their damage matters more than yours. That MP bar, it matters just as much. All right? Red Mage is like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Counterpoint, damage doesn't matter until you hit enrage.
True. I will say that for red mages who say melee combo in prog, by the way. If you're a red mage and your answer in prog when you're like not at the end of the fight is no melee combo, shut the fuck up and raise the goddamn person on the ground. I don't care about your fucking melee combo. All right?
People also just underestimate also like how much damage is lost from that person just not GCDing at all. Even weakened GCDs are worth a lot compared to one person damaging instead of two, right? If you keep doing your GCDs, but they're on the floor for 5 extra seconds, how much would the value have changed if you'd raise them immediately and then you're both GCDing the boss? It catches up to you a lot quicker than you would think. The faster you raise someone, the better in general, even if you're losing a lot of damage to it.
And that's such simple math, but people don't even consider that.
People often grossly underestimate how much is lost from a person sitting on the floor.
1 + 1 = 2 quick maths. Shit.
I thought it was 11. Don't you just put the ones next to each other? There you go. That's a Hey Arnold joke. They have the guy who's like really not smart and he goes, "What's 3 × 3?" 33. Always comes to mind. There was one other thing that I was gonna go to after I was done with the White Mage and Astro bit, which is that's a scary differential, but so are plenty of other things at the moment. No, I think that largely covers everything that needs to be said. Needs to be said. I'm sure there are other things that you could pinpoint and address, but a few more days. Then we get to have the show about how it turned out. Which I think is a more exciting prospect just because of us not knowing what to expect from Dawntrail.
Yeah. Oh, I have to ask you, Happy.
Oh, yeah.
And Sly both. Which do you think is going to be the wall? Is it going to be M2 or 3?
3.
3. All right.
I think gives a fuck about honey boo boo kitty fuck. Yeah, it's gonna be 3.
I think it's 3 because 2, I think we've seen almost everything relevant.
Yeah.
I think the knowledge gap there is going to be not significant enough to make it a wall. And I think 3's knowledge gap is going to be substantial. And not... I actually think the knowledge gap in 3 is going to be bigger than the knowledge gap in 4.
Oh, we haven't seen anything in 3. There's just so much that we don't know is going to happen. Like, I'm sure because we've only seen like a couple mechanics and they're fairly simple.
And again, that arena is just big for no fucking reason.
Yeah,
it's so much unused space.
It's all sectioned off by the fire. It's like, why is there so much fire?
You know why I think everyone thinks 2 will be the wall? A lot of people think 2 will be the wall because they think it's random.
And I keep telling people, like, again, with Savage or with a Savage scenario, they usually don't go with, kind of uncontrollably variables like the hearts, even though
they're not even random in normal is the thing.
Yeah.
Like we've done it. We've been like, oh, it's just this pattern every time. It's a fucking nightmare, but it's normal every time. Like the inside ones do the Byakuya rotation where they just like there's like 3 safe spots and they just slowly turn like this, and the ones on the outside just fly through. It just looks like that. In fact, I think the ones on the outside don't fly directly through the middle. I think they're like slightly off like this, all of them. So it's like from here it would be like this instead of directly down. But it's the same pattern of them every time. The circles on the ground, some of them are placed, some of them are targeted on players, some of them are targeted around players. It just seems random because in normal mode, nobody gives a fuck about saving the person next to them. They just need to move out of the shit that's under them. So they trap people in unwinnable situations. And that's also true of the bees later. Those are all baited, and every time you do it, everyone just run. Like, no one in normal's gonna coordinate a fucking Mario Kart strat. So they just fucking all run around. You're just like, ah, ah. So that's why I don't think 2 is gonna be bad. And I think 1 we've seen the entire fight. I think there's no mechanic we've seen in normal that I think it's just gonna be the exact same Savage mechanics. It's just gonna be like harder. I think Sly said he expects limit cuts for the knock up, for it to go 1, knock the person up, 2, knock the person up, 3, knock the person up. Yeah.
Did you know that the Devour in the first floor does not give a vuln?
Yeah, it gives sustained damage, doesn't it?
We played around with it and found out you could a tank can just pop cooldowns and just stand in every single one. Just follow the boss around, ignore the mechanic, and just stand in every single one. It doesn't give you a new sustained damage. It just refreshes the timer.
And
Don't need an invuln.
plus with the Devourer, there are just like 100% safe spaces to stay in each pattern.
Mm-hmm. But if you want uptime, you have to chase.
I'm so scared of melee players. So I have a huge, like, I hate playing with people who focus on logs in week 1 prog. I hate it. And I don't mean they focus on it in week 1. I mean, like, that's like their normal, like, oh, between prog, I always work on it. Because then they try to do it during prog and they get themselves murdered. And it's always the fucking melees that are doing this. And now that we're back to having
alive, baby.
Now that we're back to having small hitboxes, I am ready to see across all of the 14 space the number of melees that are willing to attempt really dumb shit to not successfully keep uptime and die at the same time.
Have you seen people greeting the M4 when she blows off the platform? And they just like try to get those last couple GCDs. They don't back out in time. They just fall. I've seen it so much.
It's not even just
I'm
that.
lucky my jump just leaves me where I am, because if we didn't have that, my ass would be off probably half the fucking time. But yeah.
It's not even just that. It's you can take the hit from the arena being destroyed and not fall off, but that hit can still very much kill you.
Yeah, you need mitigation if you're not a tank.
Yeah.
Tank's getting half health by it. I've seen it.
Yeah,
it does damage.
The other funny one is them surviving it, and then after the AoE goes off, they dash back in anyway. Like, instinctually, they just fucking go back. They're like, oh, fuck, that's right. It's going to send me off. Oh, there's going to be a lot of really funny clips. The really funny thing, I think the funniest thing that's already happened with this raid tier is that people have been taking old, like, argument clips and just putting Honeybee's theme in the background of it. Just to see how funny it is to listen to raid groups argue while Honeybee's theme is in the background.
Somebody did the vouch for me clip to that, and I laughed so hard. The serious argument of Honeybee.
Serious argument to Honeybee. Oh my god, that's gonna be so funny. I can't wait for the very legitimate clips of people arguing with that in the back.
Yes.
I don't want to endorse groups getting into arguments, but it's going to happen, and it can be.
It's going to happen.
Oh, and by the way, one last prep thing: if you've got an attitude, shove it before you get into Savage. For the love of God.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Stick that back in your ass and cap it. I don't care what you got to do. Just don't bring that in. It's not a good idea.
That's why I don't party finder.
This isn't a party finder problem, Sly. There's statics where this happens. In fact, it's probably worse in statics. In PF, people just leave. They just silently leave half the time. Maybe throw some condescending comment at the player who's fucking up, and then they just move on with their life because, like, oh, time to join another party finder and blacklist that person. No, in statics is where the arguments happen.
Usually it's triggered by unsolicited advice, which is going to happen in prog, and you need to get used to it. Or somebody dying over and over and over and over and over again. Then somebody tilts. And it's like, it's also going to happen. Welcome to prog. Sometimes mechanics don't click with certain people, and they just have a harder time. Be patient with them.
And find a way to communicate to them. Find out because everyone has different learning style too. Really try to find out what everyone's learning style is in advance. Like if somebody can't do the fight and discuss the thing that needs to happen next at the same time, you have to understand that. Instead of like chain pulling and trying to talk about it during the first 2 mechanics, then you just fucking die anyway.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times if you just walk through the mechanic and talk about it, you'll find out that there's just something very simple that they just missed. Yeah. I can give an example. I was recently working with a friend's in Zoraljaw, and in the second Triumph, there's a section where he pulls out his sword and does a in or out and a half room cleave in the middle of a whole bunch of AoEs dancing around you. And the person I was working with kept getting killed or a Vuln there, at least a Vuln, usually dying. And when we walked through it a little bit, I realized that they were missing the step where when Zoraljaw pulls out his sword, you can just walk to the other side where there's no sword before the next like donuts go off. And so if you pre-position like that, the mechanic suddenly becomes way easier. Instead, when he pulled out the sword, they were freezing in place until the next donuts went off, and then trying to evade it. And a lot of times that would just put you in an unwinnable situation. You can't make it unless you got like Shikuchi. So it was just a matter of saying, "Oh, hey, right here, you just walk across instead. Take that spot instead of the one you're at right now." And suddenly they were succeeding every pull. Just that little change. So just sometimes talking about it makes it easy.
Yeah, the out and on the same side as you, and to trying to get to the other side is not a winning situation if you try to do it last second. All right. Well, with that, we actually did stretch the show into almost 2 hours. There's usually a lot to discuss when it comes to prep and whatnot, so I guess I'm not that surprised. There's a lot of angles to it, I suppose. But yeah, I think we can start winding down. Before we do, is there any last thing that we didn't cover that you think would be important to bring up prep-wise, Kyo?
I mean, I'm gonna plug a little tradition we tend to have, and not the group we're in right now, but most groups will do some kind of little fun team building game before prog. Just like, especially on the downtime day. Like usually there's a day with not this time. This time we only have 4 hours of downtime, but sometimes it's a whole day of downtime before the prog tier, and we'll just I'm spacing out on the names of them, but like the little bop 'em sort of online games, the like party games that you can play together. Do you remember
Jackbox?
Happy? What? Or Sly?
It's a Jackbox?
No, play Chain Together. That'll go great. Played that last night. I didn't realize last night I got great practice with Savage Prog, except I only had to herd 2 sheep instead of 7. There is 8-player Chain Together mods, by the way.
Anyway, there's like little teamwork games. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but if you want to do them as a team, it really helps with like diffusing tension when it comes to like, stepping on your teammates' toes. Makes it a lot smoother when you do it in prog, because you're gonna murder somebody. You're gonna kill Happy in the middle of Criterion and make him sit on the floor for the kill pull or something like that.
I had forgotten about that actually until you brought it up.
I still feel awful about it.
I've killed Happy. Well, at least they'll get some practice in. Boss dies. What the fuck?
Enjoy your footage for your kill.
It's killed on dartboard? Yeah, I was killed on second dartboard.
It was first. You were dead for a long time.
I was dead on second dart. Because if I died during the downtime mechanic, dartboard would have gone disastrously.
I see Jitter in the chat.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
I can't believe that killed too.
Yeah, I can't believe that poll cleared. I can't either, but it happened. Thank you, third Criterion, for not having a strict DPS check like the other 2, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, now that I've taken that jog down memory lane, thanks for taking the time to do this, Kyo. We'll wrap up and keep the post show short so you can get to sleep.
Thanks for having me. It was wonderful to be here.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with you and Sly. You guys are both wonderful.
Yeah. Sly had to. His power had to take a quick break earlier, but it's not.
Yeah, it was just that. It wasn't power.
Did not have any time.
Did not
It
have
might
any.
be later though.
Is there actually even a window there? Or are you just like looking up?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a window right there. That's where the light's coming from. Can't see the light.
Well, I mean, you could be listening to rain hitting, or like you could be listening to the storm and you're just like, huh. All right. I don't know. Maybe there's no way. When I do it, if I were to do it, I'd be like, huh, it's raining today. There's no window right there, Sly. The window's that way. That's not even a window. That's a sliding door. But yeah, thank you again for taking the time. I know that you don't really use the socials much, but you do. We still have the end of the stream plug to do. So go ahead and say whatever you're going to say, Kia.
Yeah. My Twitter's on the screen right now. _ Kionu _ I occasionally post when it's really rare. And then twitch.tv/Kionu for prog on Tuesday.
I went to your social to see when the last time you used it was, and 2 times ago you retweeted my Happool Jaja picture, and that was one of the last things you used Twitter.
That was a great picture, to be fair. Definitely worth a retweet.
Thank you again, Sly. You know the drill.
Yeah, again, you can find me at twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox, Twitter at Sly, aka Gray Fox. Tuesday will be a prog free stream. You won't have to worry about, getting the fight spoiled or anything. Half of you are going to watch Haps anyway, so who the fuck cares? Either way, I will be, again, just doing my thing all day. And again, if you are in need of a crafted set, get you a Sly. There's the list. There's the form. First come, first serve. It'll be pretty chill. So there you go. And happy.
You actually reminded me of the thing I forgot earlier for Keo. So I'm going to backtrack out of this just for a brief moment.
Mm-hmm.
Keo, thinking about all the way back in Gordius and now, how do you feel about Echo and Neverland and what that means for 14? That was a big one I actually wanted to bring up.
Really excited. Like, it opens the doors to so much for building the world scene to bridge more exposure. The preview video they put on Twitter, if anybody hasn't seen that, is really cool, very hype. Everything that brings more attention to the scene is always very welcome. And Echo is a wonderful organization. Neverland's a very talented team. I'm glad to see them pair up. So, very excited. I hope more organizations get into it because it just means that the scene grows and, yeah, it gets bigger. And that's always a good thing.
There we go. Yeah, that was the one I was forgetting earlier when I said, is there something I'm forgetting? That was it. Sly saying everyone's going to watch me, and I was like, well, no, they're going to be watching Echo. Oh. There we go.
This is the first tier Neverland's ever streamed prog, so...
That is correct.
And
that's why it's a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very exciting.
It's also going to be interesting to see, because everyone's always... The top teams generally have kept quiet. I think now more than ever, the top teams being quiet is not a good idea. I think we've seen that with Endwalker. What has happened when teams have been quiet during prog, and what happens in the week or two following? It was Endwalker was a lot of things happening that expansion. Oh boy. Yeah. So the more public facing things are probably for the better.
Agreed. I think and I think stream racing is much more exciting in general because everybody can just tag along. I love the memes that are made during prog. Just in general, the stream chats have their own like life comes to them. I love the stuff from like Abyssos prog with like the tree memes and all the other stuff. Then I love the Joel memes from Perry's stream and Kindred. And the Echo streams when they were doing prog and like top and stuff, it was always so exciting to follow them and track the memes. So, more streamers, better. Very excited.
True story. I had to leave the Keo's Gordius group because I didn't want to not stream prog anymore, and we weren't going to stream Midas. So I was like, well, I have to at this point.
Yeah, streaming prog is a wonderful experience. I wish we had been more open to it in the past. It's definitely, I've always been an advocate for it.
God, Keo, that was like 8 years ago now. It's 9 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Fucking Christ. All right. And I'm the last one to do an outro. Hi, I'm Mr. Happy. Yeah, I'll be streaming prog on Tuesday. I'll actually have Twitch front page on Tuesday at some point. So that'll be fun. They just like open that up for partners. There's like I guess a more streamlined process for it now or something. There was like a form or something that they tweeted out or whatever. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll do that. That's good. Also, tonight, I have something very, very different. Have you not seen that slide, what I'm doing tonight? Oh, you have? Yeah. Yeah. There's a story. So I'm doing, consider it more like a get to know the streamers kind of thing. But I have a casual date night stream tonight. Yeah. Yeah. So a friend of mine, she occasionally does those with some of her friends. And she came into my stream and I was talking about how I feel like if I did that, everyone would just be like thinking I'm just bringing on cute girls to flirt with. She's like, well, you should do that. And I was like, well, you're cute. Do you want to do it? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that we're doing that. Let's do that this Friday. That was it. That was the end of that discussion. And so that's tonight. So if you consider it like Haps and Co. After Dark, I suppose. Because that's really what it's going to be. It's going to be just kind of like personal conversations and stuff. It's like a get to know your streamer kind of thing. So that should be fun. That'll be at 7 p.m. So that's about 5 hours from now. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Because that'll probably be a fun time. Haps After Dark. Never mind. I don't like that. I don't like that term anymore.
Nope. Too late. It's out there. It's out in the ether. We're using it.
No, and this is online.
That'll probably be the new name.
I know this is
when it gets rebranded.
Thing. No, it's not going to get rebranded, Sly. I'm not rebranding.
After Dark.
No, that's we saved that for the other requests I've been getting on social. That's a different. That's the different site. That's the. Hey, do you have an OnlyFans? By the way, what do you think of the monk changes coming? Which is very close to a real DM that I got. That's very close to a real DM that I got. I got a real one where it was like, "Do you have an OnlyFans? Love your 14 content." It's very close to like the actual thing that I got. What a segue that was. Seeing that in my DMs, hilarious though. All right,
you're a handsome man. I can understand the comments.
Thank you, Kyo. Thank you for thank you for feeding that. That's gonna.
Yep. No
But
problem.
for real, when we getting this OnlyFans though?
Sly, why do you want to know? Why do you want to see my dick? What are you asking? Fucking Christ. I'm ending this show. We'll be on next week with first impressions of whatever. We'll probably have it cleared. We'll talk about Savage next week. That's it. Show's done. Thanks, patrons. We're done now.
Please look forward to the OnlyFans.
Look forward to date night.
Yeah, look forward to date night. How about that? Because you get, I'm moving on. That's it. We're on the outro screen now. It's cut. It's cut. All right.